Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of Winners and Winers Radio. It is Hump Day, and I am your host, Scott Steehn, lead handicapper at winnersandwiners.com.
And I'm your co-host, Scott Reichel, senior handicapper over at winnersandwiners.com.
We have a great show for you here today, of course. This is Winners and Winers Radio, where you give us an hour, and we'll give you the winners. We've got some fun stuff to talk about. We're going to talk a little NFL, both with ourselves and with Ben the Pen Hayes, and he is a senior. What is he? He's the editor-in-chief. Editor-in-chief at winnersandwiners.com and a darn fine handicapper in his own right. So we're looking forward to having him on the show. Of course, we're going to be doing our Bet the Farm play a little bit later. And it's chock full, Scott. Chock full.
I'm looking forward to it. A lot of stuff to talk about. Overall, my day yesterday was okay, I guess. Had a little bit, I can't really call it a bad beat because at no point did the team I picked was ever actually covering, but it was a team total. And I had about 3 innings to work with against the Angels bullpen needing 1 run. And I believe I got 1 base runner. Not good enough.
Not good at all. Yeah, we took a couple of brutal beats. We had the first 5 over in the Boston-Detroit game, and first Boston leaves the bases loaded in the top of the 5th, and then Detroit comes up single double. They get it to 5, and they have a man on second, nobody out. All they need is a lousy single, and yeah, couldn't get it, Scott. Couldn't get it.
Hate to see it.
Yeah, they walked a guy and brought Cabrera to the plate. And I'm like, oh, that's not good. I don't want to put a guy where it's going to be a possible double play. And that's exactly what happened. Hit a little dribbler to the shortstop. A lot of guys, most guys in the majors would not have been doubled off of first. Cabrera, not one of those guys. He is in the Sal Perez category as far as foot speed goes. So, and then the other one, we had the Milwaukee Brewers, and that was going really well to the 7th inning, and then they puked up 5 runs. So congratulations. Welcome to my day. Not the best one all the way around. But you know what? That's what today is for. We got to put tomorrow in the rearview mirror. But before we do that, we're going to talk about some people that wish they could put yesterday in the rearview mirror, Scott. These are the people that maybe took it in the shorts, took a bad beat, thought they had a winner, and then they didn't. And if you haven't had enough of that from me complaining, well, here's a few more in a little segment that we like to refer to as Call the Cops. All right, Scott, let's get it rolling, shall we? We'll start off, of course, in the major leagues. And if you had the Phillies Nationals under 8.5, you were in great shape after 6 innings because it was 1-0. Scored 5 runs in the 7th. That's ideal. That's not ideal, but you're still just at 6. 3 runs in the 8th, Scott. Couldn't hold on. Game ends 5-4. That's a half run more than 8.5. So if you had the under 8.5, you had it. I had it. I don't got it. And you can call the cops.
And the second one happened between the Spain national team and the U.S. national team in men's basketball. If you had Spain plus 13, you were in very good shape. Tie game at the half, you were competitive throughout. Ricky Rubio had 38 points, and yet it did not matter in the end. Spain was trailing by 12. There was no shot clock. And Durant said, you know what, let me dunk it one more time for no reason. And Team USA won by 14. Last time I checked, 14 greater than 13. You can rip up your Spain plus 13 ticket.
Brutal. Just absolutely. It was one of those things where if you bet the NBA, if you bet college, you're praying that it happens. And it never happens because they're always classy. They don't score. They just dribble it out. And most times you're a point short. So the one time, if you had the wrong side of it, they went ahead and just jammed it. And of course, for everybody that was unhappy, Scott, there was a whole group of people that were actually happy. So
how many games do you think it takes in the NBA for Rubio to score a combined 38 points? 3?
7.
7? Okay.
7. Scott, we'll finish it up with the Marlins Mets. Big battle there in the NL East. If you had the under 8.5, you sweated this one all the way through. They had 8 runs after 8 innings. You're just looking for a lousy, clean 9th inning, Scott. Could you get it? Could you get that? No, you could not. The Mets, 2 outs. Come on, Mets, just do your thing. Nope. They insisted on putting up the run, pulls the game to 5-4, and that, again, is greater than 8.5. If you had the under there, rub a little dirt on it and walk it off. But you might have to call the cops.
Not fun. A lot of bad bullpens in the league.
A lot of bad Milwaukee Brewers. The first team with the bullpen in that division wins, I think, Scott, because Cincinnati's pen is terrible. The Milwaukee pen, man, they've got like 3 good guys and everybody else sucks. And
one of them has COVID now, so now they have 2 good guys.
And Hader has COVID right now, so that's not ideal.
You mentioned Cincinnati also. Honorable mention there. They did blow a lead in the 9th inning yesterday because the bullpen's terrible.
What we do, we're Cincinnati. Well, Scott, on the other side of the coin, these were the people that were happy. They knew they were happy from the beginning. They made the right play. They sussed everything out correctly. One of those games where you're thinking, maybe I could do this for a living. You had the winner early, and no shenanigans, no late night heroics. You were just sitting in the rocking chair.
So, first one wasn't a match between the Yankees and the Orioles. If you had the Yankees on the run line, that was easy. Up 6-0 after 2 innings, up 9-0 after 3 innings, won the game 13-1. If you had the Yankees, it didn't even matter who was pitching. Cole, somebody else not named Cole, who cares? He scored 13 runs.
Was it Cole? Was it Cortez? No, it was none of those guys.
Actually, sorry, I misspoke. They led 1-0 after 2, led 6-0 after 3, 9-0 after 4. So I was off by 1 inning. Still won 13-1 though.
Okay, all right, that's much better.
Yeah,
People
perfect.
Like, that's a much easier.
That changes everything.
How about Braves on the money line taking on the St. Louis Cardinals? Led 5-0 after 1 inning. Led 6-0 after 2 innings. That's all they needed. St. Louis managed to scratch across 1 run over 9 innings. Nicely done, Birds. You had the Braves right there. You were sitting in the rocking chair with a 6-1 victory.
And the last one was the White Sox on the run line taking on the Royals. The White Sox led 3-0 into the 7th inning. Then a lot of runs were scored in the 7th. Ended up turning into a 7-1 game for the White Sox. That was where it ended. White Sox won 7-1.
Hey, speaking of terrible bullpens, it's Kansas City Royals, everybody.
How'd your boy Bubic do yesterday?
I think I feel like he pitched okay.
That was the gist I got as well.
But it was kind of a bullpen pukage effort, And they're bringing a lot of young guys up, Scott,
as they should.
So yeah, right. So they're getting looks and coming out of the bullpen, and it's.
Where does Lovelady rank in terms of last names for pitchers in baseball?
Good one. It's a darn fine one. It's a solid name. Richard Lovelady. He's been a Kansas City Royal now for a while. Yeah, Bubic had a quality start.
Yeah, 6 innings, 3 runs.
Yep, and then Kyle Zimmer, infinity was his ERA tonight. He came in, gave up. Oh, that's a. I'm not even sure how you do that, Scott. No, he walked 3. He gave up 3 runs, no hits, 3 walks. So I'm guessing
that's impressive.
I'm guessing Lovelady gave up some hits.
It means he ended up walking all 3 guys he faced, and then
that's what I'm guessing.
He got charged with the runs.
That's what I'm guessing happened. He walked the bases full. Lovelady came in and cleared them off.
Mm-hmm.
So Zimmer gets charged for that. So, yeesh, not good at all. That was definitely a nice, easy rocking chair win for the White Sox.
Yep.
So Scott, I've been waiting to talk about this all day because there was a couple of ridiculous NFL stories, and I wasn't sure which ridiculous story we were going to talk about. Things are getting a little chippy in the in the training camps situation. Of course, you had the was it Ebo?
Yes, the Carolina Panthers undrafted safety
out of South Carolina. He knocked out a kid there, a 4th-year player.
Knocked out, decapitated, whichever verb you want to use.
It took him away in an ambulance. So ended up with a concussion, but it looked like it could have been a lot worse as he just basically took his head off, stretching for a ball coming across the middle. The kind of thing, if you did it in a game, it's insanity.
It's the kind of hit that was legal back in 2004.
Yeah, Jack Tatum says hi, but in 2021, that gets you cut from the team. They immediately released him. So no shenanigans. But that wasn't even the most shenanigan-y thing of the day, Scott. It is time once again. Get ready. Head to the hitching post. strap on this golden feed bag because somebody is going to take home the prize of Donkey of the Day. Oh, not good. Not good at all. Scott, who's wearing the golden feed bag today?
So, looking at the other incident that happened in training camp today, it involved the New York Giants. And they had a little bit of a brawl going on. And just to go through the actual backstory, you had a handoff to Corey Clement. If you didn't know he was on the Giants, now you know. He got hit pretty hard by a defensive player. Then Evan Ingram ended up going over and basically, I don't want to say punched the defensive player, but there was some type of shouting match with some shoving involved. Then Logan Ryan hit Evan Ingram. Then you had a full-on brawl between the offense and the defense, which resulted in a pile. Now, the question I have for you, what's the color jerseys that quarterbacks are supposed to wear so you don't hit the quarterbacks?
I believe they all wear red jerseys for the most part. Some teams wear yellow shells, I believe is what they call those, Scott. They go over the outside. They're sleeveless mesh jerseys, for lack of a better term, but it means no contact for who is ever wearing that jersey.
So my follow-up question there, does no contact include being at the bottom of a pile up with about 20 people on top of you?
Not sure that's spelled out in the actual handbook, but that does seem like it would be implied, yes.
So that's the ending result of what happened with that little skirmish you had between the offense and the defense. Somehow in the bottom of the pile up, you had your injury-prone quarterback Daniel Jones, and one guy who wasn't too happy about it was Coach Joe Judge because he made the team run gassers for about, I don't know, 20 minutes, give or take.
Long time.
Long time, but anytime you get into
puking involved for sure.
Yes, fights happen in training camp. But
First day of contact, by the way.
Yeah, first day of contact, some fights will happen because the offense and defense tend to be pretty independent of each other with the coordinators, and they kind of like an internal rivalry there. But the one rule, regardless of what side you're on, don't touch the quarterback. You probably shouldn't have him on the bottom of your pile up.
Did I'm sure Jones had to run too?
That was actually my initial reaction, was Jones got piled on and then he had to run.
Brutal. That's
brutal.
That's tough love right there.
The Carolina one was an honorable mention, but anytime a quarterback gets involved in the first day of contact, and it's contact by like 20 other people, I got to put that as donkey of the day because that's just atrocious.
No, it's terrible. Yeah, you ever, you're talking about knocking out a third string receiver return guy versus your entire hopes for the season.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's not ideal at all. So
now, Jones brushed it off, but still, the concept in general. You could arguably cut 5 people on the roster for doing that today.
Yeah, it's just silly. So do you think Judge made his point? Do you think the players realize it's no nonsense? There's no more jacking around, that this has got to be a year where everybody has to kind of row in the same direction?
Well, this kind of reminds me of something that happened about a week ago, which was the cutting of Kelvin Benjamin, who was a tight end for about, 2 days, give or take.
For stealing food?
Allegedly. That was apparently just a myth, but Kelvin Benjamin did publicly state that the culture for the Giants is mostly revolved around Joe Judge yelling at people. And he said that they don't exactly listen to him, they mostly fear him, which, don't get me wrong, is one way of leading. That's definitely been around for a while.
Right.
But the couple of Giants came to Coach Judge's defense saying he has all of our respect, he does whatever. So I'm sure the gassers definitely helped push his point across. But assuming the statements were true in the previous week, they like him anyway. So I'm assuming he got his point across. What do you think?
Yeah, I certainly hope so. Because that's the thing. One thing remains constant in football at every level, Scott, whether you're playing pee-wee football or whether you're playing in the NFL and you are in tip-top physical condition, nobody wants to run ever. I was unfortunate enough, my entire football career, Scott, I played at a practice field that was downhill. And my God, all they did was make us run hills. I swear that's how I spent 3/4 of the time at football practice in middle school and high school, was running the hill. If you ever have to run a hill,
I can only imagine how bad that must be.
not fun. It's not fun going up, and then you're gassed, and you're coming down, there's some tumbling. There's some tumbling involved. So that's all I'm saying. So there's our donkey of the day. Quick reminder to everybody that you are listening to Winners and Whiners Radio. Give us an hour. We'll give you the winners. Of course, we are now available at all kinds of podcast platforms. We're on iTunes. We're on Spotify. You can catch us on the YouTube channel. We had to do a simulcast over there. So wherever you are, if you're checking us out on one of our podcast formats, make sure that you subscribe, like the podcast, all that good stuff. Like and subscribe over at the YouTube station. And if you're on the radio, just keep listening. That's really you can pound your radio with enthusiasm whenever you hear it. So
Also, if this is your first time listening to the podcast or the radio show, hi, how's it going?
hey, what's up? It's good to have you aboard. We've been doing this every day. We do it every day, every weekday, and we'll have a new episode up pretty much first thing in the morning. So you guys will be able to get all your picks and all your information if you're looking to get that early. So, well, Scott, let's talk about the inevitable, shall we?
Let's do it.
Bob Bowlesby, commissioner of the Big 12. What a great name, by the way, for a Big 12 commissioner. Do you think you an extra leg up if your last name is Bowlesby?
Mm-hmm. Well, since you're competing for bowl games, I feel like that's kind of a perfect fit.
So Bob Bowlesby and George Kliavkoff?
Not as good as Bowlesby.
Kliavkoff, commissioner. He's the commissioner of the Big 12. Had a meeting Tuesday to discuss the viability of perhaps a strategic partnership between the conferences. That was reported, of course, by everybody's favorite Jezebel, ESPN, who just tries to break up all the happy couples. It's nothing official. It was just sort of, it was described to the official as kind of a joint lament session where everybody just kind of vents a little bit. But here's my question to you, my friend: is this marriage between the Pac-12 and the Big 12, is it inevitable? And if it is, does everybody get to go, or do we leave some folks behind?
Well, first of all, I'm all in for fake public group therapy sessions. So that's always a great place to start for the media to break down an actual topic.
Excellent.
But do I think it's inevitable? I think we would agree, regardless of what type of mergers or breakups you're going to have when it comes to conferences over the next couple of years, the landscape of college football that we mentioned in the past is going to completely reinvent itself over the next 3-4 years. And there's really no way to go around that. I mean, you already see that happening with the SEC. You're assuming that in response to that, a lot of other conferences will either A, try to copy what Texas and Oklahoma have tried to do, or B, other conferences will try to just find more ways to make money. I mean, which is always the main source of, I'd say, inspiration when it comes to the actions of various teams and motivation, stuff like that. But as a whole, I do think that this is a little bit too early to start talking about the inevitable nature of a merger between the Big 12 and the Pac-12. If there's any legs to the Clemson story we heard yesterday, which we both think there might not be, it was mostly a push for some radio viewings, or listening, numbers. But as a whole, I'm not going to buy it. I do think it could potentially happen, but it sounds like they got together at a bar, pitched a really, really brief idea, and now people are just running with it. Doesn't it sound like they really didn't put much thought into it?
It kind of does. Like they ran into each other at the airport Hilton bar or something.
It sounds like the famous lore story between the Red Sox and the Yankees in the 40s. I don't know if you ever heard this story, but there was an alleged bar trade that involved Ted Williams being traded for Joe DiMaggio. And it was written on a napkin. True story. Happened in a bar. And they ended up writing it down, got really, really drunk, and they were pitching the idea to each other. And they actually agreed in principle to a trade. They woke up the following morning, and both of them said at the same time, "Are you out of your mind?" And the trade never happened. True story.
Was it just two drunk guys at a bar, or did they have some official capacity with the
No,
team?
they were like the general managers
Oh, okay.
or I forgot if it was general manager or the owner, but it was the Yankees and the Red Sox, somebody prominent in power on both sides. And they pitched a Ted Williams for Joe DiMaggio trade while they were absolutely plastered at a bar at like 2 a.m. And the next morning they ripped up the napkin.
Would you make that deal?
It depends on which side I am. The truth is, you really can't go wrong with either side because they're both all-time great players. I'm always partial to Ted Williams personally, but
Yankees fan, really?
I really am. Anytime you bat 400, I know 56 is the magical number. There's really no loser in that trade, though. I think you'd agree with that.
No, no, there is no loser at all.
But I don't know if you ever heard that story, but that is circulated
I've
for
never
the
heard
last
that
couple
story.
decades. Yeah.
See, that's the great thing about our show, Scott, because everybody, you come for the picks, but you stay for the lore.
Mm-hmm.
That's a beautiful thing. That's a great story, and that's
I get the same notion from this. They got a drunk Zoom call between some prominent people in the Big 12 and the Pac 12 and said, what would be great? What if we turn this into the Big Pac 24?
so. What is there? We got 12 schools in the Pac-12. I mean, does that? I
There
mean,
should be,
I know.
mathematically.
Well, right, but there's not 12 in the Big 12. There's not 10 in the Big 10.
Yeah, the
So
math numbers are really, really bad when it comes to a lot of people in power don't know how to do basic computation.
they just stopped changing, like, because the conference that K-State and KU's in, they went from the Big 6 to the Big 8 to the Big 12, and then they just got tired of it.
It's like the Bob Uecker theory in a Major League. It's like, yeah, who cares? Nobody's listening anyway. They just have a bunch of random numbers thrown in. Nobody cares.
Well, fair enough. So, how long before this happens
Any merger between these two conferences?
between these two conferences?
I'm not sure if it's going to happen. I think that there's a chance the ACC could get involved if the Clemson theory has legs. But it really does make a lot of sense for both these conferences to merge for football because both of these conferences, I know Oklahoma's gotten into the playoff. They get rocked every single year. That doesn't really mean much. The Pac-12 claims to be a Power 5 conference. I think that's debatable because they don't exactly get treated the same way as the other four big conferences there in
They're
college
both
football.
debatable. You want to start throwing?
I'm saying the Big 12 I think is more legitimate because they at least get a team into the 4-team dance.
Well, okay.
The Pac-12 has gotten nothing. They got Oregon back with Mariota. I think that's the only time they've ever been.
Every year they learn the same thing about the Big 12 when Oklahoma goes. They go, well, Oklahoma got a bunch of wins in the Big 12. Oh, I guess the Big 12 isn't very good because Oklahoma sucks once again when it plays a real team.
I'm trying to think. The Pac-12 got two teams in. They got Oregon and they got Washington that one year. And Washington got smacked by Alabama. But I think those are the only two times they ever made it. Yes. And as a whole,
I'd forgot about Washington.
I'm saying you shouldn't remember them because Bama killed them anyway. But the way that I'm looking at it is that if you want to try to get more respect amongst the other conferences, I do think a merger between arguably the third best college football conference and the fourth best, or the fourth and the fifth best, however you want to break it down, does make some sense. You?
Yeah, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to say for the 2026 football season, there will be three conferences. There will be
three big conferences, you mean?
There will be the three power conferences. Yes, there'll be the SEC, and then there will be the ACC/Big Ten. There'll be the big ACC, and then there'll be the Pac Big 22.
So would they still call it the Power 5 conferences because nobody bothers to change the math?
No, they will not. They'll call it.
You think they'll actually adjust it to the Big Three?
They'll call it the Big Three or something like that. So, well, Scott, let's talk a little baseball here real quick. And of course, they didn't do well yesterday, but the Giants have the best record in Major League Baseball. And I was reading some stuff today. They're talking about projections for the season. All the experts, they literally asked like 100 experts at ESPN and MLB and all this stuff. Literally no one saw it coming. Everyone had, well, for the most part, I think 93 people had the Dodgers, 7 people had the Padres. Nobody saw this coming. And if you look at their fan graphs projections, they're projected right at their win total they are right now. Their third order wins, which is, I don't know how much you know about that, but third order wins is basically, it takes the order out of play. It kind of, because obviously if you have like 4 walks, okay, if you have them all in a row, you get a run. If you have 4 walks over 8 innings, not that big of a deal. So it kind of tends, for third order is kind of takes the element of luck out of the equation. Anyway, they're actually underachieving compared to the contrast with their third order wins. So my question to you, my friend, is how did everybody get it so wrong? And is it time to get on the Giants, or are they still, can we say it at this point, 2/3 of the way through the season roughly, are they still just a flash in the pan?
I wouldn't say they're a flash in the pan, but I do think there are some warning signs with the pitching staff, which is going to be the main point of my argument here on why people underestimated them. Gausman's kind of struggled a bit down the stretch. DeSclafani's been atrocious.
Yep.
I'm not going to try to hide that. He's been terrible.
couple 3 starts, he's been very bad.
Now, Cueto's been fine. Wood's been good. Webb's been pretty good. But I am
Cueto got hit hard yesterday.
Cueto got hit hard, but as a whole, he's been okay. So one bad start, whatever. DeSclafani's had some serious issues, which makes me think that maybe he's either injured or he's just in terrible form. But that goes back to my main point with the Giants. And you're asking why teams underestimated them or why experts did. And it kind of goes back to one thing that you can mention for the Oakland A's Moneyball team, which is the fact that the rotation was really, really, really good, and nobody thought it was going to be that good. Even the movie didn't include the pitching staff because it didn't support the narrative. But that was a great pitching staff. I mean, you had Hudson, Zito, Mulder. You had a lot of aces on that staff, and a lot of people thought that they were a good young group of guys, but nobody thought they'd be as dominant as they were, which is a big reason why the A's ended up having that phenomenal season. And you make the same argument with the Giants. Offensively, they've been a bigger home run team than people thought they were going to be because, of course, at Oracle Park, home runs aren't as common usually as other stadiums. But I think it's the rotation and the overall pitching staff. It's been fantastic. And I do have some concerns if the top of that rotation is starting to leak some oil down the stretch.
Yeah, unravel a little bit. I'm the same way. And we'll be revisiting that here a little bit later in the season as it goes forward. We'll see. Right now, I think there's a little bit of value, but we have to see how the integration of the new players for the Dodgers goes. So, Scott, real quick, let's talk a little NFL here. I know that you like to always take a look at the futures as far as the awards go. You have Dak Prescott, we're talking about comeback player of the year. He's the big favorite on the board, plus 150. Nobody else is better than plus 450. I know you like Dak there, right?
I found plus 210 on DraftKings. I like it. It's a narrative-based award. I think that if Dak puts up decent numbers on quote-unquote America's team, I know that everyone hates that nickname because they haven't been relevant in about 20-something years, but the media will always talk about the Cowboys. They're always going to be on TV, and Dak had the brutal foot fracture or broken foot, however you want to phrase it. I think the stars are aligning for a good narrative story if he ends up with 30-plus touchdowns. You?
Yeah, you're right. I think if he has 30-plus touchdowns, he'll be in good shape for that. I'm looking a little bit further down the list as I'm always looking for value there.
Well, what's your stance on narrative-based awards? I think this is the closest you'll get to a narrative award in the entire league.
Well, just because of the severity of the injury you're talking about?
Just because the fact that the foot completely snapped on a televised game and how, he gambled on the contract and how he was a mid-round pick. And, there's a lot of different storylines I think that suit him to win this award.
Well, if you want a narrative, if you want to give it based on a narrative, Scott, look no further than LDT, Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, the guard for the Kansas City Chiefs, took last year off because why? Well, he's a doctor and he stayed in Canada to help out with COVID. So he's back this year, and nobody loves that story more than the NFL and the powers that be. However, a couple of problems. First of all, he's an offensive lineman, and the other problem is, Scott, right now he's not running with the ones. He's not going to be a starter if the season were to start today. So he's got a long road to hoe. But if you talk about narrative, that's your narrative right there. And you and I were talking about most valuable player, and if you ever had a doubt that this is a completely quarterback-dominated league, look no further than the odds for most valuable player this upcoming NFL season, because the first 15 choices are quarterbacks. That's really tells you all you need to know right there. And you and I we always talk about shopping our lines, but there's nowhere you want to shop more than here, because if you for some reason wanted to take Deshaun Watson to win the MVP award, God bless your optimism. But Scott, on BetOnline, he's 50-1. What do you have him at?
DraftKings has 20-1. I think he could be 200-1. I still wouldn't bet him to win.
No. You should absolutely put your money in a wheelbarrow.
No, I'm just saying, realistically, he's not going to win.
On fire.
That's the point I was trying to make. Like, you can find a great odds. He's not going to win. He might not even play. But the point is, regardless, you can shop around and find some really good lines.
What's he worth in a trade?
Right now, probably a first-round pick, not knowing the outcome of the trial. He could go to jail. Who knows?
Yeah, I just can't imagine that anybody's going to take a spin with him. If you wanted to look past the obvious choices, Pat Mahomes, of course, Matt Stafford at 10-1. Scott, can I interest you in Aaron Rodgers at 14-1?
I have to be tempted by that. I mean, I see 10-1 on DraftKings, but he's the defending winner. I would wait to see if Adams returns to camp or the team in general, because
All right.
he, of course, is the biggest weapon. But
Very good.
Rodgers puts up huge numbers. That division's not very good. I think that makes a lot of sense.
All right. Very good. All right. Well, let's take a quick break here. We'll be back with Ben the Pen Hayes. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the show. And we are joined. I've been waiting a long time for this. We've been trying to get him on the show, and it is perfect timing. He is the editor-in-chief over there at winnersandwhiners.com, as well as our sister site, statsalt.com. He is the one, the only. It is Ben the Pen Hayes, everybody. Mr. Hayes, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Scott and Scott. Great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We want to talk a little NBA, a little NFL, just whatever gets you going. I know you're a Ravens fan, right?
True. Ravens, Orioles, Nationals, certainly the Wizards. There's no basketball team in Baltimore, and not really into hockey. But
So just to make sure, the only team you admit you're a fan of in public is the Ravens, correct?
basically, that's it. Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Well, when we go in your closet, do we find like a lot of Ravens gear and not so much Orioles and Nationals? They won the championship. So
I can't find any Wizards gear, although I obviously can get them on Amazon. And it's basically, it's a lot of purple in my house.
do you have like a Wes Unseld throwback Bullets jersey?
Well, I was a ball boy back in the day, so I got a Bullet shirt.
Oh, that's
Probably a medium, so I don't think it'll fit. But yeah, I go way back with them.
Outstanding. So let's before we get rolling, let's talk about the Ravens a little bit. 10.5 on the win total there in a 17-game season. I know they've got a pretty brutal schedule, but am I wrong thinking there's a little bit of value on the over there, Ben?
I'd like to see Lamar Jackson in camp first. Of course, he's on the COVID list. He should be back Friday or Saturday. I think they have a pretty good football team. Rashad Bateman, the wide receiver from Minnesota, has looked really good so far in terms of camp and mini camps and stuff like that. Your guy, Sammy Watkins, if he stays healthy, at least for 7-8 games, should help. They got one of the better tight ends in football, Mark Andrews. They're going to run the football. They've got to be able to throw the ball. They know that. They hired T. Martin to help out as a quarterback coach. And, I could see 11 wins. I wouldn't jump high on it because it is a tough schedule. They are in a tougher division. Cleveland won't be a walkover. Cincinnati probably will be. But Pittsburgh, I think, as long as they have Roethlisberger, they're going to be a tough out. So I would jump on that, but not really, small.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, because we're pretty down on Roethlisberger on that show, or on our show. So maybe you can bring a little balance and a little perspective. You think there's still something left in the tank there with Big Ben?
Well, can he last 17 games? That I'm not sure of. But I think that they have Najee Harris, right? So adding him, the much stronger running game. They got rid of Connor, who was doing nothing. If Ben can last most of the season, I think they're going to be, they still have a tough defense. They still have TJ Watt. Their offensive line's not bad. So I think they'll be, and they have good receiving force. I think they're a tough team as long as Ben can stay healthy. And if not, I'm not saying Ben is what he once was, but they should have a strong running game and a good defense. And if Ben can just manage the game and not kind of screw it up like a Baker Mayfield, they're going to be in that mix, at least for a wild card spot.
So they've got them basically as a 500 team as far as the win total goes. You lean over 8.5 with Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I would lean over because Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin doesn't have many losing seasons. As long as he's got a quarterback. So I would go over on that.
All right. Scott, what are your thoughts?
On the Steelers?
On the Steelers, on the NFL, on life in general, free Brittany, wherever you want to weigh in, buddy.
Doing pretty well overall, but looking at the Steelers itself, I'm curious how much of Ben's thoughts on Big Ben involve PTSD, because we both think that Big Ben's kind of done at this point. It's mostly just looking at Pittsburgh's offensive line. It's atrocious. There's really no way around it. It's one of the worst offensive lines in all of football, which is really shocking because we know that Pittsburgh has always been a team that likes to get it done in the trenches. And this year, they'll probably have a hard time doing that. I will give them props, though, for replacing Bud Dupree. They did get Melvin Ingram, which I do think is going to help out, because he's going to be opposite T.J. Watt. The defense should be fine. Fitzpatrick's a great defensive back. I just can't get past Big Ben's noodle arm at this point. as well as the 17-game season mixed with the offensive line. Najee Harris, I think, is a great player. I agree with you there. I think that he's a tremendous talent, but he's not behind that Alabama offensive line anymore. I think he might have some growing pains in the NFL. It's mostly just the offensive line, though. I can't get past it. That's such a terrible unit. You have any thoughts on that, Scott?
No, Ben, I believe Scott slightly disagrees with you.
Well, I agree with Tomlin. I don't think they're going to be awful. I think they'll probably win around 7 games or so. I just think 8.5 for a 500 team. I do agree that Tomlin does a lot when it comes to keeping his teams relatively competitive. He's also had so much talent in the past, and it just doesn't seem like that talent is as prevalent as it was in previous years, in my opinion.
All right.
Yeah, I think the offensive line that, definitely Ben's got a noodle arm right now. The offensive line, questionable pass blocking, but pretty good run blocking unit. So we'll see. I mean, I think the Najee Harris pickup's really good. As a Ravens fan, I'm always going to respect them. But Scott, we forgot to talk about Justin Houston going to the Ravens. What were your thoughts on that? I'm sure you mentioned it.
I'm obviously a little torn. We would have. It's always a shame when one of the greats, all-time greats in your organization moves on, especially when they play for what I would consider probably our top rival at this point. So yeah, it's hard. I'm not sure from your standpoint. I don't know that there's much left in the tank, Ben. I wouldn't necessarily get my hopes up for Justin Houston. Hopefully in a situational role, he might be able to contribute some valuable minutes. I'm just not sure he's going to be much of a 2-down or an every down kind of guy for you.
Yeah, well, that's the way they're going to use him, as a situational pass rusher, because he has gotten 8 sacks 4 straight years, and the Ravens have nobody that can consistently get to the passer. So, and they have some young guys. They're not probably going to be ready. So I think the Houston pickup was pretty good for the Ravens last second for not a lot of money.
Well, and the other thing is he's a crafty veteran. You're going to have to occupy him with at least one offensive lineman. You're going to have to chip him with your tight end. So he is going to have to be accounted for, and that hopefully will take some pressure off and allow maybe some of the other guys to break through.
Yeah, they blitz the most out of any team in the league, and at some point you're just going to have to get some interior pass rush,
right?
Some exterior, and they lost Matthew Judon, so the Justin Houston pickup I thought was a pretty good last second move by Eric DeCosta.
Just to be clear, do you think the Ravens win the North?
I think it's going to be close. I'm obviously biased, but I'm not going to, I'm not just waving the flag for the Ravens. I think they'll win based on maybe beating Cleveland. Look, it hasn't beaten them in years, so I think they'll win it, but I think it's going to be very close. Cleveland's going to be right there with them. I could see them winning, 11 games and being maybe tied with Cleveland. Maybe they have the tiebreaker somehow, but I think it'll be that close. I think they do edge them though.
Yeah, for me, I'm looking at Baltimore on the over on the win total. I know the schedule's tough, and I understand that Cleveland's become a very, very solid team in that division. But the thing I always respect about Baltimore is the fact that they have an identity. They know what it is. And because of their identity, they really, really dominate the turnover battle because they like to drain clock, time possession. And even if Lamar is not the greatest thrower in the world, it also means that with a pretty great special teams unit, you can always pin opponents deep, worst case scenario. I think we'd all agree Baltimore's going to finish in the plus column in the turnover differential, right?
Yeah, I mean, Baltimore doesn't have a major weakness. I mean, you could say it's Lamar's throwing, downfield. Obviously, he threw for 36 touchdowns 2 years ago, but it's more the Cleveland's big weakness is their defense, and especially their front line, and that's a problem, especially when they face the Ravens. So
you see the video of Clowney falling down during the drills the other day for Cleveland?
I missed that. No, that was a pretty good pickup, but not as good as people think because he's a little bit overrated, shall we say.
Yeah,
I don't even know if we shall say that. I just think that's accurate, but fair.
Yeah, we talked last year about how much of his reputation was made just on one play, on how much money that one play in college made him, and it's millions. I don't think there's a question. So Ben,
he's talented. So
what team do you see breaking through where we could maybe find a little value on a division race? Who do you think is going to surprise some people in what division, and is it time to pounce on them?
It's a good question. I mean, I think the Chargers. Now, your division there. I don't see them taking Kansas City, but I think they can make it a pretty interesting race. That they are they're at. I see they are at 9 win total. I could see them winning close to 11.
Right.
Is just, so a lot of people say, well, Justin Herbert's going to have a sophomore slump. I just don't see it. If you're good, you're good. And usually the great quarterbacks aren't really that good their first year. So I think Herbert ascends even a little bit more, and a new coach will certainly help them. So
Yeah,
I think
that's
Chargers,
absolutely true.
everybody's on the Rams. I know Stafford had a little slight injury today, but you couldn't say the Rams would be underrated because they're at 10.5 wins from what I see. I think San Francisco slightly because I see them bouncing back because they had so many injuries last year and people are not quite on them as they should be. And Garoppolo is solid, not spectacular. Don't really see anybody else as far as, maybe, that everybody's down on Arizona and maybe Arizona is a little bit better than people think, but I'm not a big Kingsbury fan. So that's a little tough I think they're at 8 wins. And that's probably about right. And don't really see anybody else that's underrated. I think Philly at 6.5, I might go over because I think Jalen Hurts, people are down on that whole team. But they might be a little bit better than people think.
Well, that's the division that I was going to talk about because if you want to look for any long shot of any kind, looking at the worst division in football where all 4 teams look lost half the season is usually not a decent option. I'm thinking maybe Washington if you want to go for like a plus 260 shot if you think Fitzpatrick might provide a bit of a spark because we know Alex Smith had a pretty great story. Performance-wise, he wasn't that great. Not trying to sound harsh, but I think we would agree that Fitzpatrick is a massive upgrade in the pocket in comparison to Alex Smith last year, right?
Yep.
Well, Alex Smith couldn't even get his story was great, but he couldn't move out of the pocket. He couldn't.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
He just took care of the ball. And, Scott knows he always took care of the ball wherever he was.
Right.
But no, he wasn't a threat. Fitzpatrick,
he's the opposite.
Magic, it's Fitzpatrick. I don't know. He can move. It's a questionable pickup for Washington. I think Taylor Heineke might end up playing there, but they're average. They're probably the best team based on their defense, which is outstanding. And I think Ron Rivera is a good coach.
In the division where everyone trips over themselves, I feel like picking the safest option there, even if it's underwhelming, is always a decent way to pick up plus money. But maybe that's just me.
Yeah, how do you trust Daniel Jones? The New York Giants have better weapons for him now with Kenny Golladay. But, he throws 2 or 3 touchdowns in a practice and everybody gets excited.
He also ended up on the bottom of a dog pile today because he ended up being the victim of a little brouhaha going on in practice.
Right. Well, it's Saquon Barkley is back for them, but just to me, they're 7 and 10, 8 and 9 type of team. Yeah. Nobody's really good. Dallas should be better, but their defense is still a question mark. So it is definitely a poor division.
Hey, Ben, how short of a leash does Jimmy Garoppolo have out in San Francisco before Trey Lance takes over?
I would say 5 or 6 games. It depends on how Lance does in the preseason. You guys talked about preseason. I know it's important for the younger guys. Not, Jimmy G. I don't think is going to play at all, if maybe a quarter. But this is for Trey Lance. If Trey Lance looks really good, well, then you say maybe it's against second and third string competition. But you don't start him right away. If I'm Kyle Shanahan, but I think you have a lot of confidence if he shows you something. If he doesn't, then it's Jimmy G all the way. And, unless he gets hurt, which he probably will, then I think Trey Lance, again, a lot depends on how he performs in the preseason, in the 3 preseason games, although I'm guessing he only plays 1 or 2.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, I think that's probably right. And it's going to be interesting. You and I, we were talking about it a little bit before the show started about how teams use the preseason with the shortened preseason schedule where you're down to 3 games. Which game is going to be the one where you showcase everybody? Normally that was the 3rd game. Is it going to be the same, or is the 3rd game going to be you see who ends up making the last spot on your roster kind of game? So we got to see how that is and stay tuned. And we got about a minute left, Ben, and we would be remiss since we haven't had any professional football to bet on in about 6 months. We do have a game on Thursday night. It is the Hall of Fame game. Probably won't be one of your epic battles featuring talented people and all pros on each side, but it is football, and they will take a bet. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Dallas Cowboys, or at least there's guys that are going to be wearing those uniforms. So, Ben, what do you got? What do you make with that one? It is the Steelers by 1.5, and of course, 33 is your total there in Canton.
Did the total go down? I thought it went down to 32 or 31.
I'm still looking at 33 on an offshore site.
Okay. You can shop around. But yeah,
shop around, go with the under. That's the top play. And you got some bad quarterbacks out there. If Mason Rudolph doesn't play for Pittsburgh, you're looking at Dwayne Haskins. And then for Dallas, Garrett Gilbert. I mean, what do they have? So
Danucci,
yeah.
Oh yeah, Danucci, great. Jerry's favorite quarterback. So I'm looking at under first. Pittsburgh, I'd have to look at. I think Tomlin doesn't care for the most part. I mean, neither coach is going to care about this one. So I would slightly lean towards Pittsburgh, but a bigger play on the under.
Totally agree. And it's free season. You got to keep your ear to the ground. You've got to read the local stuff and go to the team's Twitter and check out the local papers and all that. All right.
Yeah. Thanks, Scott.
Absolutely. Ben, thanks for having us once again. He is Ben Hayes. He is the editor-in-chief over at winnersandwhiners.com. Make sure you stop by and check out his stuff as well as his stable of writers and handicappers, all doing great work over there at Winners and Whiners. I'm guessing maybe we can have Ben back as the season gets going to talk a little bit more NFL and college football. So you guys stay tuned, and thanks very much for listening. We'll be back on the other side. Thanks again, Ben. All right. Welcome back, everybody. Remember, you are listening to Winners and Whiners Radio. Winners and Whiners Radio, give us an hour. We'll give you the winners. You never know where those winners are going to be. NFL, MLB, wherever we got winners, we're just dealing them out, Scott. I like Ben. He's a good cat. Was he a good boss to work for when he was your editor there? I guess you still write for him, right?
He still messages me sometimes. So I can't say used to. I still talk to him every now and then.
Other than the teams he roots for, pretty good guy. So good having Ben on. I know we'll have him on again as the year progresses and we get deeper into football season. But right now, Scott, we got baseball. So we've left ourselves a traditional about 8 minutes to talk about every baseball game on the card. So, Scott, fire it up, would you?
Well, you said 8. It might be 7 because we got to take a minute to pat ourselves on the back yesterday for our odds makers are drunk segment.
That's right.
Because we talked about the Padres and how the A's were laying 190. I believe that closed at around 160, so some other people agreed with us.
Sobered up a little bit.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well for us because the Padres rolled, and yeah, kind of how you draw it up for a dog of the day mixed with the odds makers might be good, but every now and then they mess up.
Yep, and you got to be ready to pounce. I loaded up on that one. I know you did as well. So yeah, if you were with us for our odds makers must be drunk segment. First time we'd done that, and it worked out pretty well for us as the Padres did their thing, took care of business. That line made no sense, still makes no sense. So,
yeah, but anyway, to go back to your original point, it's time to actually talk about the future games that have not taken place yet. And we'll start off looking at a matchup between two pitchers who have been really good lately for some reason. Nobody really knows why. You have a matchup between the Yankees and the Orioles, and I'm looking at the under. Because you have Matt Harvey on the mound, who has been phenomenal, hasn't allowed a run in 3 starts. So he's acting like it's about 2013 again. Meanwhile, if I asked you a trivia question, and same thing with the people at home, who won AL Pitcher of the Month in July? You probably wouldn't have guessed Jameson Taillon of the Yankees for going 4-0 with a 1.16 ERA. Fun fact, it was Jameson Taillon, and those were his numbers. Yep. I'll go with the under because both pitchers, even the first 5, have just been very good lately. I think that total's too high.
I think there's value on Baltimore first 5 as well. If you want to take Baltimore first 5 plus a half on the reverse run line, you could do that. I'm not sure I want to count on the Baltimore bullpen to get involved, but at least the good relievers should be well rested after the beating they took yesterday from the Yankees. So. But I think the totals are a much more playable option there, especially in the first 5 or even for the full game, like you said. So,
yep.
Oh, very good. And looking at the Kansas City Royals and the White Sox now, Carlos Hernandez made his major league debut last week for the Royals and was very good, Scott, very good. And he is getting huge price against the White Sox as Giolito and the Sox somewhere around minus 250 favorites. Can I interest you in the Royals? And I told you I thought Bubic would pitch well yesterday, and he did. He was let down by the bullpen. So maybe we could take a spin for the first 5 on Hernandez and the Royals there?
I think you could. Then again, you might want to be worried a little bit with regard to the fact that the White Sox are clearly just the much better team. So, but at those odds, I don't blame you if you think Hernandez can catch lightning in a bottle twice. Do you think that was a little fluky based on his debut, or do you think that there might be some legitimacy to him being a stellar MLB pitcher?
I think at this point it's probably fluky, but we'll see. And you never know if a player's got some skills. A lot of times they come up because nobody has a book on them or anything, so they're able to kind of fool the batters the first couple 3 times. But then everybody starts picking up those patterns and they adjust, and then you've got to make an adjustment as a pitcher, and that's really those second and third adjustments really kind of tells whether you're going to stick. So we'll see. He may have another good start anyway. Scotty does have good stuff. So tell me.
I did hear that somewhere.
Absolutely true. Hey, how about one of the worst pitchers that we've seen lately, Scott, in Jose Mejia going against Steven Matz for Toronto? Cleveland Indians. They are, what do you say, Scott? Not good. Not good at all. Matz hasn't been fantastic, but Mejia has been kind of
bad.
Next level bad. Can I interest you in a little Toronto run line, even as the home team there?
I'm not sure he'd be dominant in AAA, but looking at the overall numbers, I like the over. Matz has not been good lately. Toronto has not been good lately in the starts. That's kind of scaring me off a little bit. Toronto has been very good since going back to Toronto because, of course, with the crowd back in Canada, it's a huge advantage. But I like the over. I know Cleveland's offense isn't very good, but they do have a lot of righty power bats, and I do think that should match up well against Matz, who has struggled, as I said, and he is not very good. I like the over. I think you'll see probably a high-scoring game.
Give me some runs. Give me those runs. Anything
Question
else?
Quickly for an underdog. Do you like some value on Detroit against the Red Sox? Now, the Red Sox are still, of course, the much better team record-wise, but they have lost each of their last 5, and they did lose the opener yesterday. We both like Mize. I know lengthwise he's not going to do much, but I do kind of like how Detroit's played lately. 7 games over at home, so they're a good team at Comerica. I'm assuming you agree with me there's some value on Detroit?
Yeah, and the thing is, this Detroit pen has been actually pretty good lately. You were used to them being terrible most of the season, and they've actually stepped up their game. So I'm not afraid to play them full game. I think catching them at plus 145, plus 150, I think there's definitely some value there. And Scott, I'd be remiss, and you had to talk me off the ledge on this one about making it our dog of the day, but I don't hate Jake Odorizzi and the Houston Astros going up against Max Scherzer and the Dodgers. Houston has the better record. There's the dirty little secret. They have the better record than the Dodgers. Odo hasn't pitched great. Of course, Scherzer making his first start after coming over from the Nationals. Scott, two of his last 4 starts, they weren't good. Gave up 7 earned, 5 earned, I think. That kind of price, I mean, you've got the Dodgers well into the 200s as a favorite, minus 220 or so. You're going to give me the better team at plus 185, plus 190? How am I passing that up?
I wouldn't say that I was officially trying to talk you off the ledge for making it an official play. I'm fine with it. I just think that the Dodgers are one of those teams that I really just can't predict properly because you know that they're going to win games, but they randomly take games off.
Yeah,
which just annoys me about this team. So
I like playing the Bucks.
It's a personal bias where it feels like whenever you try to get a read on this team, you can't figure them out. So maybe that's just my personal relationship with the Dodgers. But everything you're saying makes sense from a logical standpoint.
It doesn't sound like you're convinced, though.
I'm not personally, because the Dodgers, if I bet against them, they'll probably win by 5+ runs. We talked about the "you're dead to me" idea for a segment. Dodgers win games, just not when I back them.
Yeah, I'm the same way in the reverse with Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh's won about 6 games this season, and I think I faded them in all 6 of those wins. It's just brutal. The Pittsburgh Pirates have destroyed us. So
I don't hate the value on that, though.
What else you got?
Well, looking at the rest of the card, looking at – it might sound like a little bit of a bold call, but I kind of like the over in the Giants and the Diamondbacks game. I know Gausman was great throughout most of the season. Lately, not so much. And Gallen's a guy that I've liked in the past. This year, I'll admit, he has not been very good. We know the Diamondbacks bullpen's not good. The Giants bullpen's okay. I do think that total's a little bit low because I think Gausman's being priced based on the pitcher he's been all year long, not the what have you done for me lately approach, which I do think has some merit. I kind of like the over there. I think that number's too low. You?
I don't hate that. I don't hate that at 8.5 playing down there in the desert. Scott, I know that I was very critical of Miami when they traded Zach Gallen and Caleb Smith. In retrospect, now I know they didn't get a big haul for those players, but in retrospect, it looks like they bailed on those guys at a pretty good time, doesn't it?
Yeah, I like Gallen a lot, but I will admit he has not been good this year.
No, again, I was a big fan, and I was very unhappy when Miami traded him. I really thought they were putting together a pitching staff down there. So yeah, it was a situation that I couldn't really understand at the time. But now, after you've seen these guys this year, you're like, oh well, okay, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Are you? Milwaukee jumped up and choked yesterday after having an incredible streak of 11 wins and covering them all by at least 3 runs. And they had
the streak's still alive. You just add a loss to the record.
Well, that's true. That's very true. That's very true. In every game they'd won by at least 3 games. Now, the thing is, they gave it up in the 7th inning, and Milwaukee had a streak going where when they had the lead in the 7th inning or later by more than 2 runs. I think they had won their last 187 in a row. I think I saw the stat come across. So we're really putting a jinx in rarefied air right there. But my question is, any value on Pittsburgh when you're laying Milwaukee at minus 300?
I think you can make an argument, but realistically, I think if you're going to find value, it might be the Pittsburgh maybe plus 1.5, plus 2.5 if you think they maybe keep it close. But I think if you're back in Milwaukee, you got to be tempted by either the first 5 or the Pirates team total over. If you think that the Brewers without Hader in that bullpen could potentially fall apart. We know Williams pitched yesterday. I don't know if he's going to pitch today. They went to extras, burned a decent amount of bullpen arms. If you're throwing out the likes of some pretty mediocre bullpen guys you don't exactly trust, and Perdomo, etc., you might be able to score some runs late to maybe beat a team total that's pretty low for Pittsburgh.
Perdomo was actually pretty good. He wasn't even the weak spot of that.
I'm just throwing out random names that I could think of.
No, I know. We were talking about that before the show. We were looking at the pitchers, and you go, oh, those guys have in common. They all 3 sucked for somebody else. And it was Daniel Norris, Curtis, and Perdomo.
Yep.
So yeah, Daniel Norris just
not good.
Don't even get me started on that. So, all right, that's a. So you're saying your play on that would be what?
I'm looking at Brewers' first 5 run line, and I'm also looking at the Pirates team total over because I do think that if Peralta only goes 5 or 6, you might have some opportunities late in that game.
Yeah, you're likely to get a good price on that because with the total sitting at 8.5, you're going to get a number on Pittsburgh that's going to be
that could be 5.5, 2.5.
It could be 5.5, 2.5, and even against Freddie Peralta, I wouldn't want anything to do with the Pirates in the first 5. But again, we've seen this middle relief core for the Brewers. They're not good. They're down Hader. So yeah, this is a team that I don't know if they're in trouble because everybody chasing them has some serious flaws, and there's really realistically just the Cardinals and the Reds.
It's not as bad as the NL East in terms of competition, but there are a lot of flaws with pretty much every team that they're competing with.
Yeah. The Cubs are done, obviously. Pittsburgh was done in 1979, so that's not good.
And Cincinnati has no bullpen, so I think the Brewers can kind of rest on their laurels a little bit.
That is a real shame, too, because they are just mashing the ball.
Yeah, they're good. They just can't pitch.
It's just terrible. Apparently, there's a couple of different aspects to the game of baseball that they did not consider, like your bullpen.
But speaking of terrible pitching staffs, they might have to segue us to one other play that we like.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get to it. We're pretty much there. You've waited this long. We appreciate your patience. It's time for us to put our heads together, come up with our very best play of the day. If you had to put all your chips in the middle, if you had to bet it all on one game, this would be our choice, everybody. Once again, it's time to get those overalls on, get out the straw hat, climb on your John Deere, and bet the farm. All right, my friend. Well, we are going to take a look in the American League as the American League West as the Angels and Texas Rangers go at it. This is going to be Shohei Ohtani against Colby Allard for the Rangers. We're going to make a first 5 play on this because we have no desire to get the Angels bullpen involved in any sort of situation where we have to count on them. They've been good lately, but yeah, we're not counting on that. Ohtani, on the other hand, has been very good over his last 30 days, 1.35 ERA. Meanwhile, Colby Allard goes for the Rangers. His last 2 starts have been very forgettable. 13 innings pitched. And
well, no, but his last 4 starts, 10.8 ERA.
All right, I'm going to have to get on you about 10.80 ERA over his last 4, 0-4 in those starts. And overall, he has made 10 starts. He's made a few appearances out of the bullpen with the Rangers. 1-9 in Colby Allard starts. Not good at all. Angels, they can put up some runs, and they can especially put up some runs in the first 5. 7th most in the majors at 2.81 runs per game, first 5 innings. How do the Rangers do? Well, funny you should ask, because they don't do well at all. They're last in the league, Scott, at first 5 runs. Less than 2 runs per game in the first 5, 1.99. And a little cherry on top for you. As a home team, no one allows more first 5 runs than the Texas Rangers. This seems to me like a very obvious, very good play. We're going to take the Los Angeles Angels first 5 minus the half run on the run line. Gets us down to a friendly number of minus 115. We've got that at BetMGM. And that is going to be our Bet the Farm play.